Now, when it comes to Donald Trump's trade deals, there was a lot of worry around his tariff war with China, but he has now walked back on it to some extent, and he has lowered tariff rates on Chinese exports to 30%, and China would be imposing 10% tariff goods on US goods flowing towards Beijing. So do you think this deal is now good for the world economy, or do you feel there are no winners or losers, or who is the winner in this?
Well, okay. No winners economically. This is destructive for everybody. And, it tells you something about how much we've lowered our expectations that we think of as a 30% tariff as low. I mean, that's still a crazy high tariff. 145% tariff basically meant shutting off trade completely between the United States and China. A 30% tariff, there's some estimates and assumptions to be made, but when I run it through my model, I say this will only cut trade between the United States and China by 65%. We're still talking about a massive decoupling of the world's two largest economies, and this is a bad thing. It's a bad thing for both of us. I had to say, I think probably in the long run, the damage will be greater to the United States, but it's actually huge damage to both economies. So how you can look at this and not say, my God, what have we just done, baffles me.
Right. Do you think Donald Trump has gone ahead with this trade deal under pressure from US companies?
Oh, U.S. companies, U.S. markets, but also, we unfortunately, we're hearing more than I really wanted to know about the actual policy process. We know that major changes in U.S. trade policy come about because some members of his cabinet managed to catch him in his office, while other members of his team are in meetings elsewhere and persuade him to make major policy changes, and they sit in his office until he's posted the policy change on Truth Social, the world's greatest nation, and we're making policy basically based on who talked to the president last. God knows what the elevator operator will tell him next.
About what he said to Apple and Walmart, he literally told them to eat tariffs after Walmart said that they were having to increase prices as a result of the tariffs imposed by the US administration. How do you think this is going to go down with the US industry and the kind of precedent it really sets out by telling one of the largest retailers in America to go eat tariffs and absorb them?
Well, first of all, yeah, he's been telling us all along that China will eat the tariffs. Now he's saying, well, actually, they won't, so Walmart should eat them. So that's pretty funny. And I thought Republicans believed in free markets. Instead, we apparently believe in an economy where the president tells you what prices to charge, which is pretty bad. And it's just not feasible. I mean, the retailers like Walmart have a margin of a few percent. And when you're imposing reduced tariffs of 30%, saying, well, they shouldn't pass it on to consumers, that's just not going to work. Maybe they won't raise their prices. They'll just stop selling stuff. I mean, if anything, this is a recipe for empty shelves. But it's bonkers. And just last thing to say is, does Trump have any idea how complicated a modern economy is? He cannot go down the list of major companies one by one and tell each of them not to raise their prices. Even he can't put up enough tweets to do that. So this is crazy. This is just trying to avoid a bad headline. And it's going to be bad news for corporations who have to wonder, what can we do that won't run the risk of suddenly becoming an enemy of Donald Trump? I mean, a president who's decided to devote substantial amounts of his time to denouncing Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift, who knows what he might do to your company?
Right. That brings me to Apple. He said this during a press conference that I've told Tim Cook that you cannot be manufacturing in India for the US market. It's fine. Whatever you want to do in India, you do for the country. But if you're manufacturing for the US, it has to be in America. How can he even dictate business or manufacturing decisions to any company for that matter?
Well, he has no legal right to make those kinds of decisions. But then again, legal rights are not something that the Trump administration seems to care a lot about. But it does, in a way, get at a fundamental economic issue, which is that a lot of the things that the U.S. imports are just not, the cost of producing them domestically is very high. We can do some things. We can certainly, you can imagine that the United States, the United States is not incompetent to manufacturing, and we've had some, semiconductor plants that have opened and have been very successful. But a lot of the production of something like an iPhone, significant segments of it are very labor intensive. Even you can't automate them completely. The United States is still a high wage nation. It's just not feasible to produce them competitively in the United States. And if Trump thinks that he can force us to do that, then I don't think it's possible. But if he tried, the increase in the cost of living for U.S. consumers would be insane. And actually, the cost of doing business, because a lot of the stuff that he wants to bring back to America is actually not even for consumers. It's stuff that businesses use. It ends up making a lot of business less competitive in the world.
Right. Do you feel that all of this, his criticism of certain policies of companies, all of this is going to slow down the capex cycle because companies will be like, hey, we don't want to invest anymore. We don't know what's happening at the White House, when policies may change. Let's not put up additional capacity. Let's not make fresh investments. And do you think this could lead to reduction in job growth as well in the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. The recession risk for the United States largely comes from not even from the tariffs exactly, but from the uncertainty. I mean, if Trump just announced 10% tariffs on everybody forever, and people believed him, that would be raise the cost of living, but probably businesses would start investing on that basis. If he keeps on announcing, well, whatever I said about tariffs yesterday, now I've completely changed, and the new tariff rate is good for 90 days. And by the way, whatever business decision you make, I may go out and denounce you and take revenge. A lot of companies are. You can just start to see it in the actual announcements, but there's truly a lot more of, hey, the safest thing to do, maybe the only safe thing to do, is to sit on cash. Don't stick your neck out. Any investment you make runs a substantial chance of being completely wasted money because policy just did a 180-degree turn before the investment had a chance to mature.
Right. On the beautiful tax bill that was set to come, as Donald Trump called it, it has been stalled for the moment, but many say that it's not completely off the hook and it may still pass the legislative process. This could increase the US debt by at least 3 trillion to 5 trillion US dollars. How do you see this tax bill that would extend the major tax cuts to different taxpayers? Who is this going to benefit, and do you think this will go through the U.S. Congress?
I think it will go through. Actually, apparently the committee hurdle that held it up last week was crossed late last night. So this probably is going to go through, unless they're rushing it. It's kind of a bum's rush because if the public got any wind of what's in it, it probably would fail. And the reason is not the tax cuts, not the deficits, although it is bad. It's clear, this is why Moody's downgraded, because this is highly irresponsible in terms of increased deficits. And, in the past, the United States has been able to shrug off worries about the deficit, but maybe those days are coming to an end. But the savage cuts, I mean, I'm seeing something like 15 million people might well lose health care. A lot of people are going to lose nutrition aid. This is just an attempt to partially offset the cost of those tax cuts for the wealthy. They are going to literally ruin the lives of millions of Americans. Many of them are people who voted for Donald Trump. So if this does get enacted, expect a tremendous political backlash because it's not just a dollars and cents. This is a massive act of cruelty.
Right. My final two questions, Mr. Krugman. On India, US and India are negotiating a trade deal. They may have an interim trade deal as well. How do you think this will be for both economies and your outlook on India?
Okay, I don't have a real outlook on India. I haven't studied it. I'm sorry. I just have nothing to add that probably every listener to this program knows more about than I do. In terms of a trade deal, I've actually been mentioning India as one of the few places where there could conceivably be a meaningful trade deal because India, although it's come a long way down from the extremely high levels of protection it used to have, still India does have significant tariffs and it can offer the United States concessions in the form of reducing those tariffs. It's very different. We had an alleged trade deal with the UK, which was completely meaningless. Had to be meaningless because the UK has less than 1% tariffs on US products. So the UK couldn't make concessions because there was nothing to concede. India could make some concessions, and maybe that's enough to make some difference. Maybe it's enough to make the United States for Trump to declare victory. In terms of the impact on either economy, it's really not going to be a big deal. India is, among other things, India is not close to the United States. It's not a neighbor. America is not India's biggest trading partner, and India, from the U.S. point of view, is a really quite minor trading partner. It's a growing economy. It's more significant than it used to be, but it's not nearly as big an economy as, say, the European Union, and it's not nearly as close as Canada or Mexico. So, U.S. business will not even notice whatever the deal is. It will have no visible impact on the U.S. economy and probably not much impact on the Indian economy either.
Right. And finally, as we see US and Donald Trump disrupting the global economy, disrupting the multilateral institutions, what does this mean for the rise of China economically? What are the big themes around China that you're watching out for and which possibly concern you?
Well, China has some serious problems. China is an economy that's built around torrid rates of growth, 8, 9%, and they still have a lot of their institutions are set up for that, but they can't do that anymore. Their working age population is shrinking. Their technology has advanced sufficiently that they can no longer achieve extremely rapid technological progress from borrowing. They're still formidable. They still have a lot of growth potential, but they're not managing it very well. They have excessive levels of investment with diminishing returns. So China has problems. But I have to say that in terms of global influence, this is the Trump administration is really making China great again. I mean, we are now in a world where China is a more reliable negotiating partner, can be trusted to keep its word far better than the United States. It pains me to say that. And China is an authoritarian regime, and they are generally not very trustworthy, but they're not nearly as erratic as my country has become.
All right, we come to the end of our program, but that was Paul Krugman saying that what Donald Trump has done with his tariff policies is make China great again and really damaged the credibility of America and the American government and America as a market as well. That's all we have time for. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.